Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and what a day to be back on YouTube. I don't know how it happened. I thought I had a few more days of suspension, but we are rather grateful to be on a platform of censorship with the boot on the neck of liberty to bring you what I would say is the complete opposite of that. And what I mean by that is we're going to be talking to Derek Broze of the Conscious Resistance, who's currently on, I believe, maybe even his third or fourth leg of this activation tour. He's going to be in the Quad Cities, Iowa, this week, this Sunday. I'm very, very excited about the whole thing. There's going to be a plethora of things going on. 6 hours, 4 to 10, completely free. We don't care how you voted. I don't care what shots you have or haven't taken. That's not what this is about. There's going to be free food. I got a $500 bar tab, so don't try to get too drunk early, but definitely if you want one, you might want to get there in the first couple hours and stick around. We're going to be exclusively streaming this on Rockfin, which obviously we're doubled streaming to now, so there is no question about censorship. But Derek, tell people about the tour, tell people about the website. This isn't your first rodeo. However, this may be your most important one as you're going across the country in a pivotal time of division and mass censorship on so many issues that we can't even talk about some of those issues here on this platform.
Yeah, first off, brother, thanks for having me back on. I appreciate it. Thanks for giving the boost of the signal. And of course, I'm excited to work with you. I think I've been following your work since Invisible Empire before, and we've been collaborating the last few years. So it'll be cool to actually connect in person. Excited about that. Yeah, we've been on the road for 5 weeks now. We left Mexico, myself, my partner Miriam, back at the end of August, and we started this tour. We just completed the Southwest and West Coast portion. We were Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, all the way up to Seattle and back down through California, Vegas. And we're kind of on just a few day break right now back in Texas visiting some family. And then this weekend, we will head north through Oklahoma, do a Midfest date. If anybody wants to check that out, it's a really awesome freedom-minded camp out. And then we're headed up to Iowa to be with you guys this weekend. So I'm excited about that. And particularly this portion of the tour, we're going to have you at the Iowa stop. We're going to have Mark Passio in Philly. We're going to have a good friend Justin Harvey from We Are Change Orlando in Orlando. Just some other good activists. Ryan Christian, of course, of The Last American Vagabond, is going to join us in Nashville. He's hosting that event. And as you said, I mean, this is all about, it's called the activation tour for a reason. It's not just kind of like a marketing gimmick or something like that. The goal is right now with everything we're facing, and I don't need to inform this audience what we're facing. We should really think logically, concretely, practically about what actions we can take in the face of everything that we're dealing with. How are we going to continue to provide with our families with these various mandates going on? How are we going to continue to educate our kids if they are mandating this or that thing, right? What does that world look like? How are we going to continue to remain free in the face of the rising technocracy and all these issues that we know? So that's why we're doing this tour. My partner Miriam, she does a talk where she kind of shares some of her perspective, and she does a short guided meditation for anybody who's interested in meditation or new to that. I talk a little bit more about why that's incorporated. For those who don't know my backstory, we're not going to tell it here, but I went to prison when I was 20 years old and I discovered meditation. It's kind of what helped me get out of the muck I was in. And so we incorporate that in there for those who are interested. Meditation, prayer, whatever you want to call it, just to kind of get people centered and focused so that all the topics that we cover can kind of, hey, get your mind prepared for this, right? And I know you're going to be talking. We're going to have some local support that you can share more about. And I'll be giving a presentation. My presentation is just called, This is what we're facing, and this is what we can do about it. Just straight to the point, and we're going to spend about 15 minutes on the this is what we're facing portion, because again, most of us, I think, are up to speed at this point. And if not, we'll catch you up later. Right now is time for you to grow your food. It's time for you to get to work, right? And so we focus heavily on solutions. And then that talk is about 45 minutes long, 45 minutes to an hour. And then after that, I perform some of my music. I've just started to perform under the name 33, doing like conscious truth hip hop. I don't really like to refer to it about like in that way because yes, I talk about truth, but it's also just real life. It's just hip hop. That's all it is. So if you enjoy hip hop with a truth edge to it, I'm going to be performing that at the stop as well. And yeah, like you said, it's totally free. Anybody can come. We don't care if you're masked or unmasked. We don't care if you're vaxxed or unvaxxed. Come out, bring your friends and family. I will say, Jason, that just the first month of this has been it's just been so humbling. We've gone to some of the most intense places in the country where the mandates are the worst and had 150 people show up. 150 people hungry for solutions, and I think we can get even more than that this next coming month at some of these stops. My point with saying that, though, is I've been asking the audiences. We've got people in their 80s all the way down to 5 months old, every color you can think of, every background you can think of, people who say, oh, I'm actually a Democrat, but I don't align with those people, or, I'm a conservative, or I'm an anarchist, or everything in between. But the point is, so many people are coming together. They're finding people in their community and they're seeking solutions, because a big part of the tour is bringing people together. A lot of people will come out to the events and they're like, wow, I didn't even realize there was this many people in my community that cared about these things. I thought I was alone, and as you know, it's one of the biggest things we can do is to help people see you are not alone. There are so many of us right now. The media wants us to feel alone, but this tour is about come hear the ideas we have, come hear the things that we're presenting, but more than anything, get connected locally with your community. So when we leave town, you guys can keep working together. That's what it's really about.
Absolutely. And like you said, everybody is welcome. And what's really cool is actually this is the area where I wanted the very first spot before, 5 other areas fell through. This is right on the river. The farmers market should be, I think, closing up maybe an hour or two beforehand, which kind of sucks. There's no overlap there. But it's a place where, especially if the weather's nice, so many people hang out. And quite frankly, I don't expect a lot of masked people there because there aren't a lot of masked people in my region in Iowa, regardless if they're politically active. We are going to be having Todd McGreevy, who put me on the cover of the River Cities Reader this past month due to the 9/11 episode, emceeing the entire thing. We're going to have representatives from Iowa Rise. Again, I'm not big on speaking about this. I run my mouth enough during the day, during the week. Everybody can check that out. I'm going to be outside barbecuing most of the time. We are going to be streaming the speakers. Pat Miletich is also going to be there giving a short speech, MMA legend. But one of the things that I have loved about this community is that I have sat there with, the Pat Miletiches of the world, people that are in defense training, understand they have to learn more about farming, and people that are just concerned about their children wearing masks, and not just in Iowa. As you know, this is the Quad Cities. It's a very different reality across the bridge in Illinois. To give you an example, I'm a thrift shopper. I'm a retro video game guy, so I go to the Goodwill a lot, and I'm trying to catch those deals. And so for the first time since they instituted the mask mandate again in Illinois, I decided, what the hell, I'm going to go there. So I go to a packed Goodwill store, and as soon as I walk in, man, without the mask, the kid behind the counter, who's a kid who's probably seen me a dozen times across both stores, because, or several of them, because he works in them all, goes, hey, do you have a mask? I'm like, no. He goes, hey, let me get you one. I'm like, no, I don't want it. But I was the only person, probably amongst 40 people, that did not have the mask on. And you go 5 miles away, and it's almost the complete opposite. There are those people that are hanging on to that fear, but That's what this is about. I want those people to come up to me and say, can I have a hot dog? Can I get a burger? Can I get a veggie kebab, right? Because I want them to eventually take off that mask, shed that fear, and realize I'm not the enemy. We're not the enemy. We need to come together and find a solution to all this fear first and foremost, because how are we going to work against the very, very apparent enemies that are very well organized against us, the vast majority, what they consider a serf class, Derek?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up that point, brother, because, as I said, we went to San Francisco, where you can't even go inside anywhere without, showing your proof of the shot. And we were just actually passing through New Orleans yesterday on the way home to Houston. And same thing, we tried to stop at a restaurant. Outside, the sign says, without the PCR, without the jab, no entry. And it's mind-blowing to see that. And we've been to places like Portland and Seattle, where some people might say, hey, those places are lost. They're just totally, it's not even worth being there. But again, there were so many good people, even in those places that might feel like they're kind of lost or buying into the narrative. And we actually have only had a couple of negative, divisive type things happen. When we were in Santa Cruz, we did have the local COVID, whatever you want to call them. They canceled 2 of our venues. They got 2 of our venues to cancel, one within an hour of us supposed to start. But we went and did it at a public park, and 80 people showed up, and it was still beautiful. It was still a wonderful thing. We persisted either way. But my point is, there have been a couple incidents. For example, this was a beautiful part, I think, of the tour. I don't think we've mentioned this yet, but we also do these community action days as part of the tour. And I think in Quad Cities, what we're going to be doing, if I remember correctly, we're going to be highlighting some other local groups people who are active in the community. We try to do different things. We've gone out and cleaned up parks, we've planted trees, we've done some urban farming workshops. We've gone out and done some homeless outreach. We've gone out to talk to businesses about putting up signs saying that they won't discriminate against people, masked or unmasked, etc. All kinds of different activities. And in Portland, we were able to combine the tour with their first ever protest against the shot passports, we'll call them. And it was beautiful. They had 100 plus people show up. Now think about it. This is Portland, where a lot of people are like, this is it's totally overtaken by Antifa or whatever sort of things you want to think about Portland. But even in that space, there was 100 plus people, good people, marching through the streets of Portland for the first time for their first protest while we were there against the passports. And we marched peacefully through the streets, and overwhelmingly, there was honks of support. There was literally people in tears saying, oh my God, I thought I was the only one in Portland who cared about this. I thought I was the only one, who cared about these issues. Obviously, that's not the truth. And then we did have people who were F you guys, you're crazy, no one likes you. But again, when you get past that aspect of it, I took the time, and this is not going to be for everybody, but we took the time to sit there and communicate with people. And some of the times, by the end of that conversation, they said, thank you. We shook hands. We understood each other a little better. Now, are they going to take the mask off? Probably not, but at least they understand where I'm coming from, because people were kind of standing on the edges. I don't understand why these people just don't care about people. Why don't they care? And I'm like, I don't think that's why they're here. And some people were like, whatever, you're crazy, I don't want to talk to you. Others were like, okay, can you tell me then, why are you here? And through patience, a lot of patience and some discussion, we were able to understand each other better. My point is that definitely, if you have friends and family who are kind of on the edges, maybe they're still open to this. I get that some people aren't open anymore to hearing anything. But if you've got friends and family and they're kind of open, bring them to this event. I promise you that the message that we're sharing is not one of division. It's not one of attacking anybody. It is one of empowerment. That is what I'm sharing. I know that's what your goal is. That's what this whole tour is about. And so if you do got friends and family and you're like, no, they would never be into this, bring them. Tell them there's free food. Tell them there's booze. Tell them whatever you got to tell them. Get them there, sit them down, and I guarantee you they'll walk away at the very least with a more broad perspective of what you believe.
Absolutely. And again, there's such a really great outdoor and indoor presence, and it looks like the weather's going to be good for this. But it's such a great vibe in this area. Plenty of parking. So if you do make that trip 1, 2, 3 hours, I promise you, you will not be upset. Come talk my ear off while I'm grilling. I'm sure a dozen people will be doing that. That's kind of the point, because, a lot of people, I'm sure you get it, Derek, you can only lead people so far, right? We all have to navigate these situations. A lot of them right now are geographic, and they're whether or not you have children. Those are two of the big things amidst this madness that are going to have you make some big life decisions that maybe you weren't prepared for 18 months ago when this started to kick off. Are you going to acquiesce and basically say the state can put anything in my child's body whenever they want, or are you going to take them out of that school if you fail to get some type of a waiver? What is the limit on what you're willing to do for a paycheck? Because we've already seen now in New York that 30% of healthcare workers were fired without warning, and we talked about this in the very beginning. I said, listen, they're not going to care. They're getting ready to replace a lot of these people with automation, robots, telehealth, AI. This is easing into that with the excuse of a virus. And unfortunately, people have a hard time seeing that because what they see are Bernaysian talking points on television and social media and in public places constantly, like safe and effective and pandemic of the unvaccinated. Speak to that and how we break those chains, and why this is an event that can break those chains, because we're not telling you to wave a flag. I'm not telling you how to vote. We don't have little cute outfits. We just want to hang out and talk for a minute, have a beer, and like I said, some food, and have a discussion about what's going on with us, our families, you, your families, and the world.
Absolutely. And you bring up a couple of good points. Those are absolutely things that I focus on during my talk, because you mentioned the kids and you mentioned the jobs. And this is something that I know you've been screaming about, myself and plenty of people. You can go to my website and look up no jab, no job. I'm talking about it in April last year, saying, hey guys, this is where it's headed. And here we are now. Many people are really feeling that. But this tour was kind of, that conversation that you're talking about is something that myself and Miriam have been having with our families already over the last couple months. We've been coming back from Mexico to visit with our families in Houston and just to kind of sit them down and say, hey, we care about you. We love you. Please think about, what are you going to do if they say your kids can't come back without the shot? How are you going to take care of them? Do you have a plan for that? Talking to brother, sister, brother-in-law, etc. How are you going to take care of family if they say you can't come back to work without the jab? Are you willing to do that? You're saying you don't want to do that. So then what's your plan, right? So the conversation started with my family, and now I feel like we're just traveling the country having that same heart to heart. Like, guys, we really need to think about what's coming, what we're going to do for our families, how we're going to continue to thrive into the future. That's what it really comes down to. And we absolutely should be thinking about this in practical terms. It's not just some abstract thing out there. Like, it's happening right here in the United States and around the world. And in Texas, people feel pretty safe. In Arizona, people feel pretty safe. In Iowa, they might feel pretty safe. In Florida, they might feel pretty safe. But we shouldn't just sit around and rest on our laurels. And like you said, oh, we'll just wait for somebody to save us in 2022 or 2024 and just kind of sit on our bums till then, because it's all good. Or I'll just put all my faith in this lawsuit or in this petition or in this whatever. Those aren't the particular solutions we're going to be promoting. Fight every way you can, do what you do, but we're going to be promoting the ideas of getting out of these systems so that we're not dependent on them, which I personally believe is the only way forward. And I do want to mention, just for anybody who's hearing this who isn't in Quad Cities, in addition to my main website, theconsciousresistance.com, the tour website is activationtour.org, and you can look up the About page, and it has all the rest of the dates for the remaining tour. We're going to be hitting the Midwest and East Coast. And again, Jason, you kind of said it. If you can drive an hour or 2 hours because we're not right in your city, I promise you it'll be worth it. I'll hook you up with a free shirt. Let me know how far you drove. I'll hook you up. It's that worth it to me, because we have people who are saying like, hey, we drove 4 hours to be here. And for one, I'm like, wow, that's so humbling. You took the time to be in your car for 4 hours there and back, right? That's a lot of driving just to come visit. But people are getting value out of this. And I'm thankful that they feel and they can see that there is value. So if you got to make a short drive, if you got a caravan, if you got a carpool, if you can't make it to Quad Cities, look up the tour dates and see if we're coming your way. And we are going to record some of these talks, and we will be releasing them. But I just think that right now we have such a crucial time window to try to connect, try to build local communities, because what happens in the Quad Cities, it might not feel like it affects those of people in Houston or those in Santa Cruz, but it does. If we all just kind of sit around and let this happen and let the technocracy sweep us up, then we know it's coming, right? But if we choose to say, hey, I'm going to push past my discomfort, maybe I'm going to make a lifestyle change because it's worth being free, or I'm going to, make a move for my kids and my family's future. If it's worth it to you, then put that effort in. Because if you don't put any effort in, if you don't do anything, then guess what? We know where we're headed. Like, we already know what's coming, but we don't know what we can create if we choose to put in the time and effort. I think we can create something beautiful.
Absolutely. And, again, I don't even think this is a technocracy. I think we're living in a technopoly. I think now is the push to legitimize corporations. This is not a parody. This is not just a simple op-ed piece. This is an elaborate piece on why we already kind of live in a techno-fascist society. They actually mention things like the Carlyle Group and KKR and all these political interweavings into corporations anyway. So why not just legitimize them along with global government and give them a seat at the United Nations? So these ideas that Derek and I are talking about are not just ideas that are being floated around or around to prepare us for this. They've been around to prepare us for some time. Now they're pulling the trigger. They're using the Event 201 scenario where they say, you know what, maybe they should sit on the board. Like, that's literally in part 5, where they want to legitimize these companies that are already on the board deciding what's happening. Johnson & Johnson, NBC Universal, right? Our health department here, the health department in China, all sitting around wargaming about a pig coronavirus from South America in the months before an actual coronavirus that they blamed on a bat. They blamed on a bat in China. This time around actually happens. Who would have thunk it? And then Bill Gates goes on television in April of 2020 and tells you it's going to be 3 to 5 shots minimum, and then probably annually from there. And people are shocked when it's booster town, and Fauci tells you that will be the next step for your quote-unquote fully booped status. Speak to the unlimited medical martial law that they've already tried to legitimize through digital tyranny.
Yeah, you make a number of good points there. First of all, that you're right. The technocracy is a monopoly as well. It's a technopoly, and that piece is just it's mind blowing. But it's doing all the things that you're pointing to. It's legitimizing, in the eyes of some people, global government. And it's also legitimizing this public-private partnership that the World Economic Forum has been promoting through the Great Reset. It's all these same agendas. And again, you made another point there with those who were paying attention to what Bill Gates was saying last year. Last year when we were exposing Bill Gates, when we built this international campaign that the corporate media tried to say was just a bunch of conspiracy theorists, now more and more people are questioning Bill Gates. But for those who didn't listen, if you had listened and you had paid attention to the words of this man, not only did he say what you just said, Jason, that there would be boosters, there would be additional shots, but he also said, oh, we might have some sort of certificates to travel to let people know who's been, received the shot and who hasn't. That was on a Reddit, Ask Me Anything. And he's telegraphing this. He's putting it out there for those of you who are paying attention. I have this saved on my phone, just kind of, it's like a reminder, a daily reminder. There's an article from the World Economic Forum website from March 2020 saying, what are vaccine passports and are they the way out of this pandemic? Like literally from the beginning, already just putting that idea out there. And then of course, slowly it gets seeded out into the mainstream and it evolves, right? So, I think that the agenda has become more and more clear to many of us. And I wish I had the energy to keep up with it at the moment. Right now, I feel like it's just been a little bit overwhelming because I feel like everything is happening so quickly. Not that I'm giving up or giving in or anything like that. In fact, I feel probably more inspired than I have in a long time because of this tour, because every night just getting to meet groups of 70 to 80 to 100 plus people who are just as excited and concerned and pumped up about this as you and I are, who are looking at solutions, not just people who are coming to talk about the problems. Let's just debate COVID, whether it's a virus or what. Just like, no, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? That's all I really care about at this point. Is it's important to continue to dissect the lies, of course, and you do a great job of that. Ryan does a good job of that. I will do a good job of that once I get over this tour. But for the moment, it feels good to know that there are also people who are ready to focus on solutions, right? That are people that see the technopoly, that see the digital ID, that see that the jab passport is just one more way to a biometric ID. Now the climate lockdowns are being discussed, and you got your carbon credits and carbon we can see where this is headed. And one of the things I've been kind of trying to hammer home to people on the tour is, guys, we're in 2021. Every document that they've discussed for the last years has pointed to 2025 and 2030. This is their decade of transformation, as they call it. We have 9 years of either kind of sitting by and being a passenger in their ship and going the direction they want us to, or saying, thanks, but no thanks. We're going to exit. We're going to decide what our lives look like. And what does that look like exactly? I don't think any of us know. But I do know that if we don't just step out, hey, we see an oncoming train wreck our way, we would be morons to just sit there and let it happen without saying, hey, maybe I should think about where I'm headed, how my family is going to survive this, how I'm going to thrive, just these kinds of realistic questions, because I see too many people who know what's going on, but are doing nothing, man. And as far as I'm concerned, we're at the point that if we haven't been already, that it's not enough to know things are bad anymore. It's like, what are you going to do though? Because knowing things are bad will still get you locked up in your home if you do nothing about it. Knowing things are bad will still end up with you losing your job if you don't take steps to make sure you're not dependent on that job. Knowing that is bad will still get you locked out of the grocery store when the time comes if you didn't take any preparation. And you might be in a position where you say, dang it, now I can't feed my family. I guess I'll go get the jab because I need to survive. And there's people who've told me this, who've said, I don't want it, but I don't know what else to do. And that's the problem, is there's no perfect solution, but I believe that community coming together we can help each other out. We can find ways to navigate through this together. And I would rather somebody say, you know what, hey, they're denying me access to the grocery store. Good thing I've been prepared, because I don't need them anymore, because I'm connected to local community farms and community supported agriculture. I've developed relationships with farmers. I've got 6 months of backup food, whatever the situation may be. You're much better in a position of strength than you are in a position of, please let me into your grocery store. Please let me, back in to get my license renewed, because that's one of the other ways they're going to squeeze people, I believe. Mm-hmm. And so I just think people need to be thinking proactive more than ever.
Well, I think that at the end of the day, the next big step as they continue these, other than just the children, because that's, one they're going to go full board on. But as they do the children, all these people that are on some type of government assistance, aka social services, they may wait until after the midterms. You see right now the National Guard are getting a pass till June of 2022. That's not a mistake because, again, you need a transitional period where they may have to fill roles of other mass firings outside of just healthcare, right? Especially if they go for lockdown 2 big or lockdown 3 at this point, right? That's a thing. But at the end, when you can't get your EBT card filled and you can't get your welfare check or you can't get your Social Security or all those things unless you take it, well, that'll be the final drive, and you'll probably see that somewhere in 2022 after even more paranoia. But let me say this. One of the ways that I love to expose this is that these authoritative sources are literally employing and being caught as serial pedophiles. This is the newest story, a scandal that, as the pandemic occurred, happened. 2018 to 2020. They're admitting this is the largest sex abuse scandal out there. They always try to make it about sex abuse. We're talking about young girls of 13 and probably younger, 13 that we know about. This dovetails into the Haitian scandal and literally generations of world government and their employees and superiors, Lord Mountbatten being one of them, as pedophiles, enablers of pedophiles, Nazis like Kurt Waldheim, and authoritarians across the board. And if you read this, and they just to say they're humbled and horrified, these aren't the actions of a previous administration, right? These are the authoritative sources that you get censored against if you speak out in any manner. And they employ pedophiles. They are pedophiles in many cases. I mean, you look at this, and they say 83 alleged perpetrators connected to the 2018-2020 mission. And they whitewash the whole thing. It's crazy to me, Derek. So, I mean, how do you feel about the fact that if I said that in the wrong context or they cut this up in the wrong way, well, that's just some QAnon nonsense. The UN are pedophiles? Okay, Jason. Meanwhile, NBC is running headlines, and there's not even going to be a slap on the wrist or say, hey, should we be a part of an organization that employs serial pedophiles and have pedophiles at the top?
I think that people really, well, for one, I'll speak to the QAnon thing first. First, you're right that to me was the whole goal of the QAnon operation. And hopefully there's nobody in either of our audiences who are still hanging on to that thread. But it was to muddy the waters, to poison the well, right? So yeah, a normie comes along and you're saying, hey guys, did you hear about this proof? This, like, you know, it's in the mainstream, this evidence that people working for the United Nations were involved in these sex scandals, these sex slave trade, pedophilia, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, this report is just kind of pointing out what some of us have been talking about for years. You mentioned the one in Haiti as well. There was examples of that. You got the UN workers spreading Ebola. You got the World Health Organization involved in this child trafficking. And I'm sure there's more and more examples we could continue to pull up. But as you said, people's first response will be something like, that sounds like some QAnon stuff. That doesn't sound like reality. And I've long held the belief that that was done to poison the well, as it goes with Epstein and many of the other cases, the Finders and plenty of others that we have, like hard documented evidence, proof CIA covers up, all the kinds of things. But no, that's just QAnon sense, right? So, I mean, that's one angle. But then the other angle you touched on as well is the fact that these are the people that last year, before my channel got deleted off YouTube, the first video that got deleted was an interview I did with the doctor, Dr. Richard Chang, talking about high-dose intravenous vitamin C. And the reason I was given was because it didn't align with the World Health Organization policies. So, you know,
that's about as far as we can go, though, because we can't say anything else. Because the lords of the World Health Organization tell us what's real and what's not. I don't know about you, Derek, but I've never voted for an official representative on the UN, yet they suddenly have a lot of control over my life. And again, one of those things that we warned about while people were calling them a paper tiger, that they would be a vehicle for the legitimization of global governance, and they will be a vehicle for this carbon credit anti-human system. And right now, they are the largest, focal point, visual vehicle for the tyranny that is surrounding us and will continue to surround us unless we step up to the plate. So listen, tell people where you're going to be in the next couple weeks before we really throw it down for the Quad Cities. Quad Cities 4 to 10.
Yeah.
4 to 10. Hold on. I'm gonna do my little voice thing. Ready? Sunday, October 10th, 10th. Quad Cities 4 to 10. Front Street Tap and Brewery. So there you go, guys. You can't do it much better than that.
That was epic. People should come just for that alone. Yeah, brother. I'm looking forward to it, man. So we're going to be, again, the website's activationtour.org. You can go there if you want to get some background on what we're doing. You can see the full dates. We'll be leaving Houston this Friday, headed up to Oklahoma. And then by Sunday, we will be in Quad Cities all day, hanging out with you, hanging out with the locals, and getting to know people. And then after that, we're continuing on. We're going to be hitting the road again for another 3 weeks. And wrapping things up at the end of October back here in Houston, Texas for another big event. And so if you guys are interested in solutions, most of all, more than anything, if meditation's not your thing, that's fine. You can sit quietly or step outside during the meditation, or maybe try something new. That's another thing you might want to consider. And you can get some food. I do have all of my books that'll be available there, my books and shirts for sale for people who want to check that out, and other great activists and journalists like yourself who are joining us on the road. I'm excited to do this. It's exhausting being on the road all the time, but it's worth it. It's worth it to come out there and connect with you guys. I've been saying this, that we've been given so many great gifts from people. We've been given books and shirts and teas and cannabis and all kinds of great things. But the hugs, the human contact is really, truly the most valuable thing that I see at this point, because there are so many people, even in our circles, I'd say, Jason, who didn't quite buy into the narrative, but just because of the results of COVID, haven't been able to really see their family or see their friends. And so there are a lot of people who are seriously just lacking in human interaction and feeling like, oh my God, I'm not the only crazy one out here. There's a lot of people, as you know, that who go through their lives at work. They have to put on a mask, maybe a physical one, but also a metaphorical one. They can't be themselves. They have to be around families. They can't talk about what they want to talk about. And then they come to an event like this, and you can just see them open up and just like, oh my God, I can be around people and talk about whatever I want. Nobody's going to call me crazy. I think that's the most valuable thing. If you want to be in a safe space, for lack of a better term, where you can come and be free to be yourself and be around other freedom-minded people and hear solutions, hear music, check out some food, and hopefully come away feeling inspired, please do check us out, activationtour.org. And everybody who's coming to Iowa, I look forward to seeing you guys out there.
Absolutely. And look, not to brag, but I've been cooking for a very long time, since I was a teenager. All right. I'm going to be on the grill. We don't do the dollar bar S dogs. We're talking at least Nathan's or Hebrew National. There'll be little steaks. I'm spending big money on this, guys. I want you to come out. I want to see at least a couple hundred people out there. So come out to 421 West River Drive, Davenport, Iowa. Front Street Brewery. There's a restaurant too. Hey, if you want to not have my delicious and spend a little money there too, that's great. It's going to be first come, first serve on that tab. But at the same time, like Derek said, if something's not your thing, it's a 6-hour event. It's going to be plenty of socializing outside. This is an outreach. This is a party. This is not a political event by any means. And again, if you haven't seen friends or family, or maybe they haven't seen you and you've been isolated that way, come out, meet some like-minded people, get into those solutions. I meet with a group every couple of weeks, and we are talking about these solutions, and we are at the school boards, and we are concerned, and we are out in the streets with nurses just like Derek is. So these are some of the things that we can do now, other than posting on message boards and on social media, where obviously we're being heavily censored. Anyway, Derek Broze, theConsciousResistance.com, and what is it, activationtour.org?
Yep. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you again for having us on. I'll see you this weekend, man.
I'm very excited. Derek Broze, and guys, a lot of other special guests. Brother, I love you. Keep it up.
Thank you, man. Peace.
So there you go, guys. Once again, we're doing it big here in the Quad Cities. Come on out. The links are down below on how to support me. Rockfin. That's where I've been. I thought I was going to be kicked off of YouTube for even longer, but yes, we got suspended on YouTube again. We're back. We got more videos coming up. There's going to be a Ron Johnson video that we're really only going to be able to play the beginning of on YouTube. You're going to want to make at least that free account on Rockfin and follow me there. Premium $99.99 for the entire year. You save $20. Otherwise, $9.99 gets you all the premium content and everybody's premium content on the channel, which is just a great deal. It is a platform that is empowering free speech and not trying to enslave you with World Health Organization tyranny. I love you guys, and I'll see you on the flip side.